Hey Merfolk fans, I'm Joe. Thanks for joining me. I'm here with round 2 of a Modern Friendly League. I'm specifically testing 2 copies of Smuggler's Copter in my main deck. So I didn't get to test it at all in round 1 against Affinity because I didn't draw it. But we managed to get the win anyway, so we're currently sitting at 1-0 going into the second round. Maybe we'll draw Smuggler's Copter in this match. So unfortunately, this is an easy mulligan. A lot of good cards, but no lands. So this is much, much better. There's that Smuggler's Copter. 2 lands. We're going to get to Scry. We've got Silvergill to draw us a card. Potentially crew the Smuggler's Copter. So we are going to keep this and Scry. AEther Vial is an amazing Scry. It's the best possible Scry being on the draw because on top of our deck, it's protected from Thoughtseize on turn 1. If the opponent Thoughtseizes us, they'll probably take the Silvergill Adept, but then we can top deck the AEther Vial and get our tempo game going. So keep that on the top of the deck. Mutavault into AEther Vial. So off the bat, looking like a Merfolk mirror. But it could be something else. I mean, there are a lot of weird decks in Modern. So there's that AEther Vial. Seeing that there's definitely the potential for the opponent to be on Merfolk, I'm definitely going to lead with Cavern of Souls here to try to keep him off of Island Walk as long as possible. If I draw into Wanderwine Hubs or Oboro or Minamo, I can play those out instead of the island and take the opponent off of a big side of our deck strategy, specifically establishing Island Walk. So there is the Cavern of Souls and the AEther Vial. We had a lot of chatting going on, me and Martel Sandsnake. Nothing important though, so I don't need to open the chat. Okay, so there's the island. We're going to have access to Island Walk if we draw any lords. Looks like the opponent has a very slow hand, despite opening with the AEther Vial. Chooses to go with Spreading Seas over something like a Silvergill Adept or a Lord. But it does get to draw a card off the Spreading Seas, but we're going to be on the front foot as far as attacks go in this game. At least that's how it looks right now. We will take AEther Vial up. We draw a Spreading Seas of our own, but we've got plenty of choices here. So I did play, I think, 1 league other with Smuggler's Copter. I can't quite remember before this one, but the idea with Smuggler's Copter is you want to get it out as soon as possible because every creature that comes afterwards, even though it has Summoning Sickness, can crew the Smuggler's Copter. If you play the creatures ahead of Smuggler's Copter, there's never going to be a lull for you to play Smuggler's Copter. Basically, you have to take the chance up front and get it onto the board. And then with AEther Vial on the table, it's great because we can get more creatures out on the board, keep equipping it while potentially doing other things with our mana, or just really flood the board with our creatures. Opponent looks like he's going to play a Cursecatcher. Okay, AEther Vial on 2, plays another Mutavault, and looks like he's going for Reejerey or something. Alright, activate Mutavault and attack. Now this is a little bit sketchy, because if I have Cursecatcher, I could play him out, activate Smuggler's Copter, and then I'd probably block the Cursecatcher because even if he vials in a Lord, Smuggler's Copter would eat the Cursecatcher. If you had a Lord and the Mutavault got bigger, then it would trade with the Copter, which is not ideal. If the opponent had something like a Vapor Snag or a Dismember, we would then have a Cursecatcher up to counter it. So sketchy attacks by the opponent, but this is really what you need to do in this this matchup is just sort of throw caution to the wind, attack as much as possible, be smart, but you really need to push damage. So I didn't have the Cursecatcher. The opponent got away with one. I sort of bluffed the Cursecatcher. I don't know what the opponent would have done with his mana with the bluff, but I didn't have it, and I took 3. Opponent didn't play anything out with the AEther Vial, potentially waiting to Harbinger, like my Smuggler's Copter or something. Let's see how this turn goes. Take the AEther Vial up, and there's that Cursecatcher, a little bit late. So what's the play here? We could start with bringing in the Silvergill Adept to see what we draw. Don't, sorry. So let's let the ability resolve. So there's a second Cursecatcher. So now it's a pretty easy decision, I think, to just play out both Cursecatchers. Equip the Smuggler's Copter. We will have the ability to counter any effects the opponent might have with our Cursecatchers. Spreading Seas might be useful at some point to turn off one of these Mutavaults, but definitely not what we want to spend our 2 mana doing this turn. I didn't mention it, but I didn't draw another land, so I had to play out my island. The opponent already Spreading Seas my Cavern of Souls, so he's going to have access to Island Walk. Alright, so I'm going to choose to equip the Smuggler's Copter here with one of my Cursecatchers, and we'll go to attacks. So at the beginning of combat, the opponent is going to try to do something. He's going to try to Vapor Snag the Smuggler's Copter. The timing was correct. You want to bounce this guy before he gets to actually tap, because he triggers on attacking, not dealing damage. So once I've actually declared him an attacker, even if you bounce him at that point, I still get to loot if I want to. This is an easy decision for me. I'm going to sacrifice the tapped Cursecatcher to counter this Vapor Snag. I don't know, it's freezing up a little bit, so sack and counter that Vapor Snag. It would be a pretty big tempo setback if the opponent did get to bounce the Smuggler's Copter, because they don't have mana to play it out again, and it can't get played with AEther Vial. So we do want to attack. We'd love to loot away the Spreading Seas and draw something a little bit more meaningful. So we're getting for 3. And we get to loot. So there's a Reejerey, which is pretty cool because this AEther Vial will take up to 3 next turn. And if I draw any other creature, I can untap Reejerey with the first one's trigger and get both of these guys onto the table next turn. So easily choosing to pitch the Spreading Seas here. It's possible I might never get the Master of Waves on the board. This is an extremely fast matchup. And in which case, keeping the Spreading Seas is a sort of reasonable option, but creatures are what win these kind of games. So swing for 3, opponent took it. Still has nothing with his AEther Vial. So I'm not quite sure what the opponent's working with over here. Had a Vapor Snag, attacked with a Mutavault. Okay, kept the AEther Vial on 2 despite not having any 2-drops to play. Here's another island. Maybe he's going for a Master of Waves, but no, he's going for another Spreading Seas on my island. Activating another Mutavault. And let's see. Attacking. So again, it's totally possible that he has a Lord now to violin. He just drew a card off the Spreading Seas and drew a card for the turn. So we can choose to try to block his Mutavault and trade with Silvergill Adept. Or we could block the Cursecatcher if we wanted to. Let's see if he lets us go to blocks first. Okay, so he did let us go to blocks. So that represents that he doesn't have a Lord. If he had a Lord, he'd probably just throw it out onto the table and try to push as much damage as possible. So thinking that he doesn't have a Lord seems to indicate that I should block with the Silvergill Adept. I did give it a lot of thought, but in the end, he didn't have anything, and I got to trade my Silvergill for his Mutavault. It's a little bit meaningless because the opponent has another Mutavault, he's got an AEther Vial, he's going to be able to get his spells onto the table. It just doesn't look like he has spells right now. So we are hoping to draw any 1-drop or 2-drop Merfolk for our turn to get a double Reejerey action with the AEther Vial this turn. But we drew a Spreading Seas. This has been a match with a ton of Spreading Seas. So I could attack first with the Smuggler's Copter. Again, the opponent could have a Harbinger and try to bounce the Smuggler's Copter, but it would have already gotten the loot trigger, which is a nice interaction. That the Smuggler's Copter its trigger at least can't be stopped by Harbinger, the Tides in the Mirror, because it triggers on attacking. So I could crew it first and attack and scry loot away the Spreading Seas if I didn't think it was that useful, but the opponent seems to be stuck with very few attacking options, and we can just draw a card off the Spreading Seas and then loot with the Smuggler's Copter, so that seems like a decent option to me. But if we attack first with the Smuggler's Copter, we're going to get to choose whether to keep the Spreading Seas or not. So I guess I decided during the match that it was correct to attack first, and it probably is. We want as much information as possible, and the Spreading Seas definitely a candidate to pitch. Say that we drew an Island Walk Lord or something. So go to attacks. Opponent can't really have anything at this point, so we're going to attack with both creatures, and Smuggler's Copter triggers. I'm definitely going to draw a card. Aether Vial. So yeah, that's fine. We're going to pitch that. That was great because even though it seems kind of a dud, right? Like, oh, we just drew an Aether Vial, but that would have been our top deck next turn. So Smuggler's Copter getting rid of garbage from the top of our deck and giving us many more chances to draw into better cards. Looks like the opponent, again, not having anything with his Aether Vial. So now we can run out the Spreading Seas. Maybe we'll draw a land, get to hit our land drop. So in response to that, the opponent does finally play his Harbinger. Not quite sure why he didn't play that to bounce before damage on the Smuggler's Copter, or even on the Cursecatcher. A little bit strange. If I had, in the second main phase, played out some other Merfolk or something, he couldn't bounce that with the Harbinger because it wouldn't have been tapped. It seemed like it would have been correct to bounce the Smuggler's Copter before damage, but anyhow. He's going to do it now, I think, or, well, no, he's going to bounce the Reejerey, which, either way, I mean, both of them are solid creatures, big threats. Again, he could have done this before... Yeah, this could have been more of a blowout than it was. He could have done this before blocks, and then he could have blocked and eaten my Cursecatcher. So learning a lot watching these replays, actually. That would have been a pretty sick line. If the opponent bounced the Reejerey who had equipped the Smuggler's Copter, he could have then eaten the Cursecatcher, which, you know, could have given him a good chance to gain the advantage in the matchup. In the game, I should say. So Spreading Seas is going to resolve. I'm going to draw a card. It's an Island Walk Lord. Things looking pretty good because I can get that double Reejerey action next turn. But now if the opponent has Island Walk Lords, draws into them. Well, he's playing another island, so he can't have too much action. Goes to attacks. No Lords before damage, and just passes the turn with 4 mana up. So we're going to leave our Aether Vial on 3, drew a land, but I think it's just going to be Aether Vial, Master, Aether Vial, and things are going to get pretty nasty. I think it's just shy of lethal. Actually, no, not this turn, because I only have 2 of them. I'm thinking of another game. It's definitely not even close to lethal, because we only have our Copter and our Cursecatcher. So we can tap one of our summoning sick creatures again to equip the... I keep saying equip. The word is crew. I have to get used to saying that. Now we're going to get in with 2 of our dudes, or at least try to. Opponent trying to Vapor Snag the Smuggler's Copter. So that will resolve. The Smuggler's Copter already did some good work this game. So it is going to come back to my hand, and I'll just attack with the Cursecatcher, I guess. Opponent down to 1 card in hand, and we will get to put out this Reejerey before damage. And just representing a ton of damage on the following attack. The opponent 1 card in hand. Even if he has magically an Island Walk Lord in hand, and he played that one and drew into another one, he'd only be attacking for... like 7 next turn. So pretty poor hand on the opponent's side. At least it matched up really poorly against the mirror in game 1. So look away for a second, please, guys, if you don't want to see the match results. I'm going to click away now. All right, we're back for round, sorry, not round, but game 2. The opponent will be on the play this time. Well, this is an interesting opening hand because we really want to see a land. Obviously, we want to see an Aether Vial. We'd love to see a Smuggler's Copter. Island Walk Lords are always great. Removal is always great. But this hand takes all of those desirable pieces and makes them look a lot worse. So by doubling up Aether Vials and doubling up Smuggler's Copters, this hand is actually pretty poor. It's similar to a mulligan to 5, even with 7 cards in hand. So I think that we can do better if we go to 6. So the opponent kept his 7, and it's important to note that the one land that we did have in our 7 was an island, and having mulliganed now, our only land is Wanderwine Hub. So on the draw, I'm going to keep this. We've got removal. We've got counterspell effects with Cursecatchers and bodies to crew the Smuggler's Copter, and Kira to potentially protect our guys. The Scry is going to be really important, and our first couple draws are going to be really important. We definitely want to draw some gas and at least one more land. The Spreading Seas, definitely going to go away. I think I had 2 of those left after sideboarding. I don't have a lot of hate against Merfolk. I did bring in my 2 other Dismembers, though. I think it was just bring 2 Dismembers in and take 2 Spreading Seas out. That's my sideboard plan right now. Oh, Aether Vial is the most amazing possible top deck. That was awesome. So he scried away a Spreading Seas and drew an Aether Vial. So I can play my Wanderwine Hub, reveal one of my Cursecatchers, and get Aether Vial out onto the table. That's awesome. So we really want to draw land now, because then we can play out our Smuggler's Copter. What does the opponent have? Silvergill revealing... what? Another Silvergill. Okay. We are going to have access to Island Walk if we draw into our lords. The opponent currently not having access to Island Walk. So we'll tick up our Aether Vial. And there's that land right on time. So nice when the deck works smoothly. So we'll play out the Smuggler's Copter, and we can Vial in Cursecatcher for surprise blocks with Smuggler's Copter if the opponent comes in with the Silvergill Adept. There's Silvergill Adept number 2, and what does that guy reveal? Harbinger of the Tides. Harbinger of the Tides, not nearly as dangerous against us without the opponent having access to Aether Vial to get that guy out at instant speed. So interesting that the opponent chose not to block. They did attack into us the first time when we could have had the Cursecatcher, but actually it's important to note that when we played the Wanderwine Hub, we did reveal this Cursecatcher. So the opponent knew that I had a Cursecatcher, and even if he didn't realize that I could have crewed the Smuggler's Copter and eaten the Silvergill Adept, it appears that he didn't want to trade with the Cursecatcher. So we'll go ahead and bring that Cursecatcher in at the end of the opponent's turn. Click, click, click. All right. And let's see, we ticked up our Aether Vial. Drew into an Island Walk Lord here. Not going to want to play that guy out quite yet, because these Silvergill Adepts get bigger with this Lord of Atlantis. This Mutavault up gives us access to Dismember if the opponent plays anything scary next turn. He did reveal a Harbinger of the Tides. So I think the move here is just equip the Smuggler's Copter and attack. Again, we want to tap our Summoning Sick guys. Go to attacks. And we do have Cursecatchers up in case, again, the opponent has Dismember or Vapor Snag. So these guys doing a good job out on the board together at the same time. Pretty much always want to loot. So that second Dismember there is really interesting. We're going to have access to Island Walk if we need it. With these lands in Aether Vial, we don't have to play any more lands. So the opponent, is going to have to get through our blockers, basically. And if they play anything threatening that's going to help them with those attacks, having access to 2 Dismembers seems pretty good to me. Let's see. This is the first time that we're getting in with the Smuggler's Copter this game. So we haven't seen whether the opponent has any Vapor Snags or Dismember in hand yet. So, but he did let the Smuggler's Copter attack, right? Which is important, because if he had the Vapor Snag, he probably would have done it at the beginning of combat. So the fact that the Smuggler's Copter is even attacking represents that the opponent doesn't have any instant speed interaction. So Kira is probably not the most useful card. We saw the opponent had a Harbinger of the Tides in hand, so he could bounce one of our guys, but again, doesn't have Aether Vial, so he's going to have to tap low on his resources to bounce one of our things, but we have Aether Vial on our side. So I think I'm going to pitch Kira and keep both of my Dismembers, especially sitting at 20 life right now, and the opponent, again, not having access to Island Walk. So Kira went away. I've got 2 removal spells and an Island Walk Lord. Opponent can't block my flyer, so they'll go down to 17, and we'll pass it over to their 4th turn. Looks like they played another land, and are tapping out for Master of Waves, which is an excellent target for Dismember. And are they going to get in with these Silvergills? Looks like they are. So I thought about for a minute trading Cursecatcher with one of these guys, but we'd rather have more attacking bodies. If I dismember this guy and then on the end step bring in Lord of Atlantis, we're going to be able to get in for 7 Island Walk plus, let's see, 7 Island Walk plus the Lord of Atlantis, since there will be no more blockers, would be 9. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Unless we, let's see, tap one of these guys to crew, the Smuggler's Copter, be 3, 3, 2, and 2, which is actually 10. The opponent would be left with 2 Silvergill Adepts, 2 Mutavaults. If he activated both of them and attacked, I'd still be sitting at 16 life. I don't think it's time to trade with these guys. So I take 16, and then again, the Dismember puts me down to 12, which would be exact lethal if I play the Lord of Atlantis, and this guy be 3, 3, 3, and 3. Take 4 now, go to 16. Take 4 more from a Dismember, go down to 12. But we have a lot of live top decks. I can draw another Lord, draw any number of creatures to put out onto the table and block with. And we don't have to attack with everybody next turn. Yeah, I think we'd rather have our creatures right now. So gonna opt not to block. The opponent's gonna deal 4 damage to us. I had to think quite a bit about this. Or, well, not this part. Dismembered the Master of Waves. But I did think a lot about whether or not to bring in the Lord of Atlantis. In the end, I opted in favor of bringing him in. Yes, the opponent's creatures are going to get bigger, but ours do as well, and they don't have access to Island Walk. So we're going to be able to set up blocks however we feel necessary, while getting in for big chunks of damage with Island Walk. We still have a Dismember to back us up. We're going to leave Aether Vial at 2, and we drew the perfect card. If we bring this guy in right now, let's do some quick math. We can activate the Copter. We do 3, 3, 3, 3. That's 12 plus 4 is 16. So just shy of lethal. We don't totally want to tap ourselves out because we are at 12 and the opponent has 12 power on the board. Easy decision, though, to bring in the Island Walk Lord. Do that now. And then, again, easy decision to crew the Smuggler's Copter with the Island Walk Lord, who we're least likely to block with. So Smuggler's Copter activated, the opponent tapped out. We can go to attacks, and we can be a little conservative. In a situation where it's going to be a 2-turn clock no matter what, we don't really need to tap everybody out. If I attack with all these guys and do 12, it goes down to 5. And then it looks like it'd be relatively straightforward to finish him off having 2 Island Walk Lords and him having 2 islands. I think I'm going to err on the side of safety. Attack with 3 guys. Leaf back this Lord. If I feel that it's necessary to block, I can block with this Lord, and then his creatures get small again. I still have access to Island Walk with this Island Walk Lord over here. We're still going to have access to flying damage with Smuggler's Copter, so yeah, that seems decent. It's still a 2-turn clock, even just swinging with 3 guys for 9. So Cursecatcher, Smuggler's Copter. We're going to get to loot again. So that's again showing the value of Smuggler's Copter is this island would have been our next top deck, and we get to basically scry that away so that we won't draw it next turn. Opponent has nothing to do. He's totally tapped out, so he's going to take 9, go down to 8. We've got Mutavault up as a blocker. We've got Lord of Atlantis up as a blocker. And we've got mana up to use Dismember if it's necessary at all. Let's take a second and think about what the opponent's outs are here. Assuming that I didn't have Dismember, he could play an Island Walk Lord. He could activate a Mutavault, and then attack with 4, 4, and 4 for exact lethal. But again, I don't have any islands for him to have access to Island Walk. Lord of Atlantis gives his creatures Island Walk, but the opponent can't capitalize on it because I don't control any islands, and he hasn't played any Spreading Seas out. Which I guess brings me to the point that you guys should all be playing some number of Wanderwine Hubs. It blows my mind that people are still asking me why I play this card. There's virtually no downside to playing it. We have like 30 Merfolk in the deck, and we play them all the time. So as you're playing, Cursecatcher, you play your Wanderwine and reveal the Cursecatcher and then play it. There's a huge upside. The opponent, any Merfolk decks that you play against won't have access to Island Walk, and it's much, much harder to win when you don't have access to Island Walk. So you guys should be playing Wanderwine Hubs. It's basically going to win me this game, I think. So the opponent drew a card and didn't have any outs at that point. I think he told me that he drew into just like too many Master of Waves, which I had an answer for with Dismember. Easy Island Walk win next turn, even without drawing anything. So yeah, this is the first match where we've seen Smuggler's Copter in action. Did a ton of great work. Drew me into a second Dismember, which we love to see in these kinds of aggressive matchups. It scryed away, or I guess looted away an AEther Vial, looted away an island. So I'm really, really into this Copter so far. Let me know your guys' thoughts. Please subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you in the next video, which will be featuring the third round of this Modern Friendly League. Thanks for watching. I'll see you there. Bye.